Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. This is going to be an incredibly important podcast. So often in churches, we bury ourselves in the whirlwind of ministry. We just do course after course after course. New things come, we throw them in, and we confuse the daylights out of everyone, including ourselves. And so by the end of this podcast, our hope is that you'll have clarity. You might not agree with what we're going to say. You might not do or take steps towards what we're going to say, but I want you to get it. I want to bring clarity to your chaotic church so that you can have a bigger impact in making and missioning disciples. And so, Louis, it's great to have you back on the show. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm happy to be back.
For those of you that haven't seen the podcast that we've recorded in the past, just Google Louis Cain, and some of my favorite podcasts have come out of our conversations. And so, yeah, I'm really glad you're here. Louis, you came into St. John the Evangelist Parish. You were recruited in, and what just share with the listeners what you came into, like what was already going that you were given as responsibility, and how did you make sense of it?
Yeah. So I came in to working at St. John the Evangelist, and there was already a lot of amazing things happening. We already had done Alpha, we had small groups, we had a lot of things going on. But going back to your word chaos, that's how I felt when I came in to try to take it over. Especially with all the small groups, there were so many small groups, but they were all doing different things. They were all had different goals. Some of them were thriving. Some of them, were they going still? We had no idea. And being able to track down the people that were part of those groups and the leaders of those groups was challenging. So some of them were thriving, but some of them needed a lot of help too. So definitely the word chaos rings a bell.
And that chaos is probably normal for anybody taking on a new job. But to your point, this is a very successful parish that is really innovating and doing everything they can to lean into their purpose, which is to make disciples who make disciples. And so, yeah, that's a double whammy, I'm sure. And so I know we did a whole podcast on how you turned around the Alpha there, and Father Sammy was so gracious because a lot of times people start Alpha and not sure some parts, and so they leave some parts out or they cut some corners here or there, and if that's your experience of your Alpha as a listener, go back and listen to that podcast, because of all the years I've been coaching into churches who run Alpha, never have I seen a more successful turnaround than what was done under your leadership, Father Sammy's blessing. It was awesome. But what did that look like because the whole idea of connect groups, I know through our coaching, came from me and our conversations. How did you discern connect groups in light of what you're doing for small groups? And by the way, if you're running small groups, we're not saying don't run small groups. So I just want to say that up front. But I want to put into context connect groups. And so how did you discern that? What was your process?
Yeah, so I think a big thing about the turnaround for Alpha, I guess going back to the start of it, would have been the focus on leadership, really. That your Alpha experience is the experience of your Alpha team. How as good as your Alpha team is the quality of experience that you're going to have. And so when we started shifting our Alpha focus to leadership, that not only was my focus as the coordinator of the guests, but now of the team, and equally pouring into them and being intentional with them, that was really the hinge. And so coming out of Alpha, I was like, what's the hinge then to small groups or whatever? What's the hinge to the next step? It's also leaders. It's being able to take people that can walk alongside people to be able to lead them into transformative relationship with Jesus and others around them. And that's a vision, I think, that's bigger than just what happens at a church or what happens in a small group. That's a vision for what happens in people's work lives, in their marriages, in their families. It's how the word of God is spread, is from person to person by developing and empowering leaders. So when we took a shift and being like, okay, what's going to be our next step after Alpha? It also had to hinge on that development of leaders. So what we did is we took our top Alpha hosts that have graduated after Alpha and helped them, empower them, and put them in a structure for running a group. And so the difference between before when we would run small groups would be more like there was no pipeline coming out of Alpha. It was just someone we thought was great. Would you want to go to a group of your friends and lead a small group? And I think the key to those were still the leaders. If the leaders were good, if they were equipped, if they were good at what they were doing, then they were going to be a good small group. If they weren't, the small group would oftentimes fondle, or whatever word I'm trying to say.
Flounder.
I don't think that was the right word. But being able to have being able to develop leaders along that path kind of set us up with connect groups.
That's such an incredible distinction, because a lot of times, the primary problem people name after Alpha is often the wrong one. It's like, what are they going to do? And so we need to give them something to do or something to belong to, but we don't form them. Forming them is not even a thought. It's like we need to keep them busy. We need to keep them connected. It's like, really? Like, that's a pretty low standard. Like, how you just framed that up, Louis, it's a continuation of the leadership pipeline. And it's like, because the primary problem that most people face with their churches is they don't have enough leaders. I was just talking to a pastor today, and he was talking about the problem with the diocese is they need to take more responsibility for forming leaders for us, because if we're going to have leaders, like, they need to do their job. And I thought, they need to put on courses. And I'm thinking to myself, do you think academia can solve your leadership problem? Are you out of your mind? Do you think the diocese can solve your leadership problem? Now I know you're out of your mind. And so you, as a priest, have everything you need to solve the problem that's before you. Everything you need. When he said, well, it's bigger than Alpha. I said, define Alpha then, because you've missed the point. You've missed the point of what you can learn. And I know oftentimes Alpha doesn't speak about it the same way we do. But if you understand this piece of leadership and the opportunity it gives you to identify people of capacity, learn how to recruit them well, learn how to equip them well, catch them doing things great, and increase the responsibility and influence, you think the diocese can do that for you? Do you think a university can do that for you? Not a chance. And so what you're saying is the next level of that is more of the same in terms of the thinking of forming leaders. Wow. That's so cool. And so as you began to, so let me ask you, how did you start then when you started Connect Groups? How did it start? Because you didn't have them. So you had this culture of Alpha for a while, and you were making that way better. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so first was identifying people that could be a good fit. And so we would do teams of 4, and we would look at, who has been hosts in Alpha, who's been around Alpha, who gets Alpha. And seeing also, like, do people jive? Like, if people are friends, being aware of that, I think is really important. And like, just trying to be like, can you work with this person? Because there's obviously a human element to running a group together. And if you have 2 polar opposite people or 4 opposite people, that's a tough scenario. So we try not to do that. That we try to make sure that people are actually comfortable with each other, that they click. But identifying leaders, having conversation about what Connect Groups are, what the responsibilities are, because it is a big jump from Alpha. So, because now you're not just have to show up and to be present to people and be able to guide people. It's a lot of coordinating when you run Connect Groups, and so that's also a different skill set. So, but really just identifying a couple of leaders, putting them together. We started with just 1 Connect Group. And then we incrementally grew it, and I think we were at 9 by the time I stepped down, something like that.
And how many people in a Connect Group, just to give our audience some perspective?
Usually 20 to 30.
Right.
So they're bigger. They're bigger than a typical small group. And
where do they happen, and how often?
People's homes, usually about every 2 weeks.
Right on. Love it. And so, for those of you that are listening, there's going to be a link down below that gives you all of the roles. I just created it, Louis. I wish I had it when you and I were coaching. It's a description of every single role, but not just the description, why we do it and how it will bless you. And so click on that link below, and you will have a deeper insight of what we're talking about with respect to the coordination and how those roles are designed to continue to form people in their capacity to lead. Okay, so you started with one. Who is the first people, like, because I know your church, and so who's in the first one in terms of the leaders?
Well, Jim and Allison Maciejewski were with Aaron and Ray Smutniak.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So shout out to those guys, because I know they're still hard at it, and they're just such amazing parishioners.
My in-laws are in their Connect group now.
Oh, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. And so you got it off the ground. We had this process because thankfully, like, our work together was great. So we were able to pick my brain, and we were able to get that up and running. How do you form, like, so, okay, you got it up and running. So is it just plug and play and then off you go? Or how do you support those leaders? Because that's one of the things in the church I don't think we do very well.
Yeah. So we would have monthly leadership meetings, and we would say at least 2 people from the team of 4 was the expectation, for them to come to those meetings. And then we would do a variety of different topics. A lot of them were about really just going back to that structure in the why piece, because without the why piece, it just feels like busy work, or that doesn't feel necessary. But to get the why, because it's not just a group where you come together to learn about Jesus. That's a part of it. But that's what I think we think of for most groups. And when we get out of that and be like, okay, no, this is a place for us to actively challenge ourselves and do something that maybe we're uncomfortable with. And going back to that why, because when we're pushed to that place with God, like, for instance, the talk is the big piece. When we're pushed to share about our life, our relationship with Jesus, our journey, there's something different that happens inside of us in our walk with the Lord, that we feel so much more equipped now to talk about ourselves, our journeys with God, in environments that are not just in our Connect group. So, but being able to go back to that why is so important, because without it, you can't, the leaders can't transfuse that into their groups.
Right. It's neat because, for those of you that don't know a little about Connect groups, like, really, it's we eat together, we listen to a talk given by somebody in the Connect group, a different person every time. Like, it's not the same person that gives the talk. We're all going to give a talk eventually, or more than one over time. And then we talk about the talk. We break up into small groups, and then we pray together, and we call on the Holy Spirit, and we grow in the gifts of the Spirit, and we intercede for each other. So that's the general framework. And again, click on the link below, and you'll get the specifics. But Louis, the whole idea of Catholics giving a 15-minute talk on faith as lay people in the Catholic Church, nobody does that.
Yeah. And everybody's nervous. I mean, people are so nervous. I mean, I remember the first talk I ever gave, I was sweating. I was so nervous. I was like, it's just so different than anything you've ever done. But if no one challenges you to do it, you're never going to do it. And gives you the place to do it. Because that's the other part of it. But when you start doing it, you get comfortable with it. And it's not just about the talk. It's about what happens when you have to articulate God in your life.
It's so important, isn't it? I remember years ago, Alpha Canada put together a weekend experience for church leaders all over the country. And it was a hand-picked group of people, and we were the only Catholics. And it was interesting. One of the questions that was asked was something like this, if there is one regret you have in your church, what is it? And so they went around and shared. And honest to goodness, I was so excited because everybody said the same thing. And so they're all evangelical Protestants. And all of them said this: my biggest regret is I'm the only one who speaks about Jesus in our church, and I haven't raised up other people. Every single church said the same thing. And I was beside Father James, and I was so excited. Like, that's not our problem. We raise up so many people to speak. It's crazy. And I just thought, isn't that interesting? Because I would assume that maybe they were better at that than we are. But no, they weren't at all. Nobody's doing it. And so how do you see, how do you see, or maybe tell us a story about somebody who you've seen change as a result of being stretched to do things that they otherwise would prefer not to do?
Yeah. Well, someone that comes to mind right away is the person that ended up taking my role. So about a year ago, I stepped down from working at St. John the Evangelist, and one of the people that took the person that got hired to take my role was someone that I had walked with for a number of years. He actually became Catholic before, and he had just so much potential because he was so good with people. He was very passionate, but he literally just became Catholic. I had to kind of beg him to do Alpha. Now he runs Alpha. Which, I mean, I guess really that was really the first thing was just getting him into getting comfortable with groups. Once he got comfortable with groups, he really took off because he had just the capacity to lead other people. But for him, I think that when he started experiencing God using him, everything started changing.
Right.
But that's the power. People don't think that God can really use, I mean, we say it, right? Oh yeah, we know that God can use us, that he uses us. But when you experience the Holy Spirit working through you, and maybe this is just my own life too, it's so transformative. And that's when we give people those opportunities to have God use you, your calling of leadership and ministry just expands. And that's the reason, as a leader, if we hog all those moments,
Yes.
it's not going to be amplified by people going out.
Right. Yeah, there's like that seed going into the ground, so to speak, like, are you seeding leadership in people? Are you giving them the opportunities? Are you giving them platforms? Or are you just trying to keep them busy doing church stuff?
And it's hard when you know that maybe you could do a better job right now, because you have to let go of the quality of the immediate moment for the impact long term.
Yeah, there's a sacrifice, isn't there? Like, that's a sacrifice. Like, this isn't as good yet. I love the scripture that says, you'll be able to do even greater things than I did, Jesus said. I'm thinking, that's heresy. You can't say that. You're God. I'm not God. Don't say that. It's like, no, I want you to. Like, I exist to make you great. Like, I'm going to give you everything you need to do what I'm calling you to do. And he just modeled leadership so magnificently. And yet, clericalism isn't just people who are ordained. As staff members, we can be very clerical. We'll do all the work. You just clap for us and tell us how great we are. It's like, that's not leadership.
And I think one thing that's just so challenging about ministry is it's just so messy, in the sense of you're dealing with humans that things don't go as planned for. And I think that a lot of times our compromise as leaders in ministry is just to make everything then chaotic. We'll throw out all structure. Everything will be by the seeds of our pants. But I think because ministry is inherently changing with people and is messy, we have to be even more clear on the structure, because we have to always be going back to this structure, because we know it's going to get messy. People are going to quit. People are not going to show up. People are not going to always bring their A game. And so we can't just live in our head about it, because it is going to get messy. But if we neglect the structure altogether, it's never going to really be able to grow.
That's so true. And it can grow with a sense of with a level of quality that we're trying to instill throughout the whole vision of it, which is different. And so I just want to say for our listeners, for us, it's based on those 5 systems, and podcast 157 and 158 are about those 5 systems. So if that's helpful for you, and it's based on Rick Warren's work. And so certainly go and listen to those. But evangelization, discipleship, fellowship, ministry, and worship, those are the 5 systems. And most Catholics don't know the difference between evangelization, discipleship, and fellowship. They can't differentiate. And so it just gets so muddled. But if you don't have a language as leaders to be able to differentiate and help your congregation differentiate, then it's 10 times worse. And so what's the primary purpose of Connect Groups is fellowship. And it's not that these other things don't happen in it, but we don't often have a primary tool for fellowship in churches. Would you agree?
Yeah. I think it's really needed today, because I think that's there's a lot of loneliness in our society, but having a church community is such a big part of that. And then Connect Groups, I think, amplify that community fellowship part.
Yeah. It's so true. And so as you watched Connect Groups grow in terms of how many you had, what were some of the biggest struggles that you faced, or that you think other people will face in growing the number of ones they have?
I think it's developing the leaders, because again, like the group is contingent upon the quality of the leaders that you have. And so it goes back to that pipeline of, especially starting with Alpha, identifying good leaders, especially when you see people of capacity. When you see people of a lot of capacity, they're usually getting asked to do a lot of things.
It's true.
And so they're not going to just like, oh yeah, I'll give you 50 hours this year or whatever it's going to be, because they're getting asked to do a lot of things. So with that, I think it's so important to talk about the why and the impact that you can leave and the importance of it, not just volunteer at the church, but the reason that they would particularly be good at it. And so I think that depending on the type of person that they are, but even just being able to break down the whole strategy behind Connect Groups, behind Alpha, can help people buy in to what's happening, especially when you identify those people of capacity.
So can we do something a little fun? If I was somebody in your church and I finished Alpha, I've gone through the leadership pipeline, I've come back on team a couple, or been a host a couple of times, and now it's time to kick my butt off of Alpha to make room for other people. How would you? Again, you know me well, so that's good, because you need to know a person well to do the ask. How would you ask me?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me think about how I would do this back in the day.
Yep.
So I would always have it one-on-one, whether a phone call or a sit down. I wouldn't do group asks unless it's a married couple. And I would explain to them the vision of.
So do it to me. Like let's role play it.
Yeah. So
all this pressure on a live podcast. It's like, Ron, you're a jerk. I want to give our listeners a sense, and feel free to screw it up. It's okay if you mess it up, but I just want to, because this is so important, because recruiting people is important, and how we do it matters. And so I just want to give people a taste of it.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm happy to share. Just been a couple of years since I've done this. But I would say, so hey, Ron, so thank you so much for all the time that you've spent and dedicated to Alpha. It's just been amazing to see the impact that's happened, that people from your group, the people that were on your team. And so I really just can't thank you enough for all the time and dedication that you've had to Alpha.
It's been a ton of fun. Yeah. So thanks for inviting me. I loved Alpha, and it's just been a ball. Thank you.
Absolutely. So one of the goals in Alpha is that we want to give other people the same opportunity that you've had to be able to lead groups, be able to host groups, be able to accompany people. And so as you've been through Alpha, starting as your guest and helper, co-host, host, that we want to give new people that opportunity. So moving forward for this next season and probably for the next while, we're going to offer your place for someone new. But How do you feel about that?
I love how you just moved me off the team. And again, I just want to point that out because that was so well done for our listeners, because you're going to have to move people off alpha. And what a beautiful way to do it. Okay, so I've just been fired and it's starting to sink in. Okay.
And some people, because I always struggled with how much you ask your big volunteers. It's a lot. And to
I
do
know.
it, but it blows my mind when some of them be like, I don't think I was as delicate as I normally would have been, depending on the person, but some of them take it really hard, actually.
Right.
Like
How do you
it's
handle that?
really hard for them to get moved off the alpha team.
Why do you think that is?
I think that they love alpha. I think that they love the community. They love meeting new people. They love seeing the
Mm,
transformation. They love having a place that they can invite their friends that they're going to be at, because it's not quite the same
mm,
when you invite your friends to an alpha that you're not the leader of.
sure.
And so all those things and it kind of blew my mind. The first person that was like taking it so hard, I'm like, you've been doing it for so long. Like it's the last 3 years of
And
your
you
life. You've been
still
going
like
to
it?
alpha weekly. Like I'm getting a little tired of it, aren't you? But some of them just love it. Not
Right.
everybody, but some of them.
Sure.
So be delicate in the
Be
conversation.
prepared. Yeah, that's good.
Um,
Okay.
but after I would share that with them, I would. So as you know, we have so many people that are coming out of connect groups, and they're hungry to grow in faith more. And
Out
right
of alpha, you
now,
mean? Coming out
what
of alpha? You said
coming out of
coming out of
alpha?
connect groups. You meant coming out of. Okay. Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
coming out of alpha, they're so hungry for more. And right now, our next step for them is a thing called connect groups.
Okay.
Talk about if they've heard connect groups or whatnot. And I would say connect groups are a place for people for alpha alumni to go and connect and grow. We want people
Mm,
to connect in fellowship and grow in their faith.
mm,
And it is a really important piece of leadership that we have to be able to run those groups. So just like your alpha team, it's groups of 4, so you're not doing it alone,
mm,
but it's 4 people that have all been through alpha that run these groups. And it's not just giving or leading the group in the sense of doing everything. It's actually the opposite of that. Or something so much more than that. It's helping people do the roles in the connect group so they can have the same type of leadership experiences and stretching their faith to be able to grow and to give their faith away. Um, so it's more of a coordinating role than it is of a doing role.
mm,
But really, the quality of the group is really impacted by the leaders, and that's one of the reasons that I really thought you would be a really great fit
mm.
for it, because you're so great at being able to bring people together to have honest conversations. And I would say something like how do you feel about that? Have you heard about connect groups?
Right.
Dive into the roles,
Yep.
and then talk about the people that we're thinking about to putting
Awesome.
people together, because I think
Right.
that's a really important part. And then we would do sometimes if they're interested, do some kind of group thing together.
Yep.
Bring everyone that I've had a one-on-one conversation with into a group environment. So if we're starting 2 connect groups after the next alpha, it might be all of those leaders together.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you for doing that. That's so much pressure to get you to do a role play in real time on a live podcast. And so I really appreciate that. That's so good and so important. I love how, because as you were saying that to me, Louis, like when you put the value on the quality of leadership and the impact that has on the success of a group, I felt the levity of or the weight of that, and then saying that's why I'm coming to you because I think you do a really good job. It makes me feel like thank you,
Mm-hmm.
and it did. I know you weren't even asking me really, but I just thought thanks for thinking about me and thanks for seeing that in me. Um, and that's the difference between I have a role I need to fill because if this doesn't get filled, we have a lot of problems. It's like, no, you're the why in it is irrelevant to the world, the busyness in one sense. Yes, there's a lot of people coming out, but this is really important and you have what it takes. And that's helpful. Yeah. Well done.
Yeah. And don't I don't think there was times that, we wanted to be able to start more connect groups because there was way more people that wanted to be a part of connect groups than we had the leaders ready for it. But it's
Yep.
not worth it. It's worth developing and having the leaders that can do a good job to start the connect group than starting with people that you're like, I just don't think they're a good fit for that.
So are you telling me that there's this great big demand that Alpha causes, and you're not going to be driven to make decisions to meet that demand? You're going to make decisions based on the quality of leaders? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because that's mind-blowing for people.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, you have a responsibility. And so how do you answer that?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
I
what
think
about all these other people? Don't you even care, Louis?
it's really tough because we also were running Alpha for, I don't even remember how many years, 7 years before we started connect groups. So there's just, a whole host of people that have been through Alpha that didn't have a connect group as a next stop. And even now, even if we still have 9 connect groups going, it's still a minority of the Alpha alumni, which is a challenge. And I think that we address that in other ways. But for connect groups, if you don't have the quality of leaders, of people that have the capacity, that people that are hungry to learn, that have the characteristics that you're looking for, not perfect because those don't exist, and you're also accompanying people, but if they have the characteristics that can grow into that, you have to be able to set that quality high enough that connect groups continue to grow and that people have transformative experiences at connect groups, or at least to a varying degree, because again, it's human, but because connect groups help build other connect groups. And so when you have good connect groups, other people want to be a part of it when they hear about the community, what's happening in them. And so being able to keep those at a high quality is important. And I think, again, it's the leaders are just as forming the leaders is just important as forming the guests, like in Alpha. Same thing than it is in connect groups, that the leadership is really that. I would do the same thing in Alpha. If we were capped on leaders, I wouldn't make more teams.
Right.
I capped all of our Alphas until we got to a point that we could actually fill the whole church, because of needing leaders.
Yes.
But doing the slow and steady approach is so much better than overwhelming it and cutting off the growth in the future for the now.
Yeah. There's a book I read by Jim Collins called Great by Choice, and it talked about the 20-mile march principle. And it just compared 2 explorers to the South Pole, and they had 2 different strategies. One guy would try to take his team 20 miles every day, no matter what the weather was. And the other guy, when the weather was good, would take his team as far as they could go. But when the weather was bad, they just hunkered down until the storm went away. There was 2 different approaches. And the argument was for the 20-mile march, like, be disciplined in how you grow. Don't blow things up just because you can, because it usually creates more chaos and tanks. And they take a look at that through the lens of businesses too, that have done really well over time versus the businesses that go straight up and then tank and disappear. And so it's an important leadership principle for us in the church. And so I'm glad we talked about that. Are there any other struggles that people face as leaders, or as getting connect groups off the ground? So one of them is recruiting the right people.
Getting it off the ground. I think helping people recruit. It's mind blowing to me because we would, in Alpha, we bring the groups together. You already have your group. You might have a couple of your friends in it that you've invited, but we're doing that work. When you're now asking someone to do that work, because they're recruiting their own people in the connect groups, I might give them a list of the numbers if they don't have it or whatever, but they're doing that work. Some people are like, there's no one that's ever going to join this. Like, how am I supposed to get 20 to 30 people? And from my perspective, it's like, I can get you 20 to 30 people so easily because there's so many people that want this. But making them do it is really important, and helping them ask people to be part of their connect group. One thing that I think is really true when it comes to recruiting is doing things individually is really important. And even an individual text feels so different than a group text.
Right.
And so even if you're inviting your whole former Alpha group, don't just shoot out an email or text to your whole Alpha group. Like, personally ask people. It feels so different. People are so much more inclined to say yes. when they feel like they're personally wanted to be part of something. But a lot of your Connect group leaders don't know this. They don't have
Right.
experience with recruiting people, at least in this kind of setting. And so being able to lay out really practical steps. So we would set a schedule. We would get them to say their start date, and then we would talk about like deadlines to be able to text people. So we would have and then we could follow up with those deadlines.
Oh, that's neat. So it's almost like here's the process of getting from saying yes to launching your first Connect group. Here, let's work backwards with dates and responsibilities and work with your team of 4 to figure out how you can bring that to life.
And then for me as a coordinator, I gave you a practical way of being able to follow up. Yeah, okay, this was the deadline. Did you do it? Didn't you do it? What do you need help with?
And just systematizing the process. That's really good. I never did get that good at creating Connect groups, so that's just such good advice. Now I'm going to school on you for that. Such a good idea. And what you're doing is you're not doing it for them. And when raising up leaders is also about empowering them and giving them roles that matter. Like people have capacity, lean on them. There's nothing worse than being a racehorse and being used for trail rides for 8-year-olds. It's like, I need to run. And leaders of capacity have it, so expect it out of them. But the other thing you just mentioned, Louis, and I just want to point this out, is how easy it is for you. Because when you think about your APES profile, evangelization is in your top 2, and evangelists are good at gathering people. And so I'm like that too. It's like, I have no problem gathering people. It's easy. Well, it's easy because God gave us that charism. But for people who might have evangelization in their bottom 2, it's like, how am I going to do this? I'm a good teacher. I'm a good prophet. I'm a good shepherd, but I don't know how to gather a bunch of people. I can care for them once they're here, but I don't know how to get them. And that's where the APES assessment's really helpful for people to understand your charisms. Doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means it's probably being disciplined because it doesn't come as natural. But if you have somebody like a Louis in your group, set them on fire because they will get you your 30 people pretty quickly.
But that's where it's also important to think about too. I mean, you want to make sure people can work together, but when you're helping Connect groups form, it's pretty easy to tell people that are good at recruiting. It's those people that bring their whole alpha group is all people they invited. Like those people are going to likely have no problems filling a Connect group. So maybe you might have another person that would be a great Connect group leader, but they just don't have that kind of skill set. So being able to pair people is an important thing to think about. And you can tell a lot by, especially if they've been through alpha, a lot of times you're going to know the kinds of groups that tend to be led by them.
That's so true. And again, that's one of the beauties of alpha. It's not just a course. It's an opportunity for you to identify people who have the capacity for influence, for gathering people, for teaching, for organizing, for administration, for music. Like otherwise, you're just posting job descriptions or, hey, we need these people. And you're talking to a zillion. But when you're making the time to get to know people over 12 weeks with alpha, all these other necessary steps in building a pipeline of leadership, you have a platform for it now. And I think that's the part that people miss. And so did small groups ever play a role as you got Connect groups going, or did it just kind of replace
some small groups that have continued? When people would come and be like, hey, I want to run a small group, or why doesn't the church do this kind of Bible study or whatever, I would always tell people, I will help you run a small group. If you need people that might be interested in that, I'll help you get people if you need church space. But it wasn't so much pushed as part of our
bigger platform
or whatever
process.
We called it. Process.
Gotcha.
So, but then there was always small groups forming, but usually for various specific topics or a specific thing.
Beautiful. And that's how we looked at it too, because we saw, again, Connect groups a primary tool for fellowship. But what's discipleship? Lifelong learning about Jesus, the church, the sacraments, the morality, like all the richness of the church. And so one of the things that we did is we would always during Lent, we'd always use Lent to call everybody, now not everybody would do it, but our hope was everybody would be involved in a small group during Lent. Now, it didn't supersede people's Connect group meetings, but it was a way to onboard people into, and we'd often pick a topic, maybe it'd be a book study, and but because we had the culture of Alpha and Connect groups, people got better and better and better at skilling up with being responsible, committed, and learning how to facilitate. And so it was just, again, the leadership pipeline that allowed other things to work. And then we tell them, it's great if those things continue, we're more than happy to source out great materials that are in line with where we're going, what we're doing, how we're doing it. And people could pick their own things too. But there was more chaos around that. There's more starts and stops, like you said, is more oriented towards learning something or what have you. And that was important to us too. But that's the difference between discipleship and fellowship. Like, discipleship is about learning. And so we consider Catholic schools one of our tools for discipleship. We consider sacramental prep one of our tools for discipleship. And so, we considered our devotional groups tools for discipleship. And so in our game plan, that's where that stuff fell, because we wanted everybody to be able to identify where they were on that pathway or the game plan. But fellowship and how you define fellowship matters, because for a lot of people, we do tea after church. It's like, okay, what else do you do? Oh, we have this Valentine Day. The Catholic Women's League does this Valentine's Day brunch for mother or whatever. And it's like, there are all kinds of social events. And how would you differentiate between social events and fellowship?
Oh, that's a good point. Well, I think that part of it is the depth of the conversation, like religious conversation specifically. And so I think that when, for instance, in Connect groups, the primary goal is fellowship, but it's not like, oh, we'll just hang out and eat. That's not the point. We hang out. It's social. It's communal, but it's oriented towards God, relationship with God, and there's a specific aspect of that.
Yeah, it's really focused on growing people in Christ, right? And that's where, like, we had a dinner at our church, potluck, and it was great food, holy smokes. And we sat at this table, and it was so fun to get to know the people at that table. And they were so happy. It was such a successful event. But I didn't form a relationship with any of those people at my table. I did at the moment, but I didn't have an excuse to see them again. And so fellowship, that, like, from a fellowship perspective, it was so low. Like, it was the lowest possible bar. But in your Connect group, you're seeing these people every 2 weeks for the next, till Jesus comes again. And so, or until you go to another Connect group or whatever. But I get to see those people over and over again and develop relationships over time if they weren't at my Alpha table, Whereas those flash in the pan events, sometimes we judge the success on those by how many people that show up or how many pancakes we flip. But it's actually a very lonely experience to connect with people you long to connect. And so you have this momentary 20 minutes while you're eating, and then you have no reason to see them again. And it's like, that's like, we've maybe made that initial contact, but we're not developing lifelong friends. We're not giving people other committed Catholics to do life with. We're just flipping pancakes. And it's like, don't think you're doing fellowship if that's what you do. It's more than social. It's rooting people in growth in Christ and, developing longer-term friendships. And so that's so cool. Well, man, I'll tell you, Louis, it's so fun to watch what you guys do there and to continue to come down to Indiana and see you and your growing family and watch Josh, who you had take your place as you stepped away and watch things continue to grow. It's messy. Ministry's messy. Church is messy. And yet, when we're leading with vision like you're talking about, the friendships that we form are lifelong and transformative. And so thanks for everything you do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's God just does amazing things.
Amen. What final word would you say for anybody who has never done Connect groups, but they're in a leadership role in the church and they're hearing this going, what do I do with this? What would you say to them?
I would say one is really understand the vision and be able to articulate it yourself. So whether that means being able to, like whoever that means that you can like really figure this out with, because you have to be able to speak it. And you can't just be like, oh, the pastor wants us to do this, or I'm their coach and he's telling us to do this. Like you have to be able to personally convey the reason why, because people are going to sense that, and you don't. And sometimes in the church we can get really into like, well, they said yes, it's great, it's fine, but if they're not bought in, it's not the same. Guilt tripping people into saying yes is not the same as people that want to be there. So really being able to understand the vision, and practice it and do things very humanly. Don't just live in your brain about planning it out, but really connect with people and have real conversations about it. Because that's what's going to inspire people, not just a vision on paper that you have already thought out everything for and you don't let people speak into.
Amen. Louis, thanks for helping us bring clarity to where Connect Groups can fit into churches that are trying to be missional, particularly churches that are doing Alpha and needing next steps. I think you've given us a lot to work with. And again, for all of you that are listening, the link is below to give you an exact description of all those and why they matter and the difference they'll make. So again, thank you for everything you do. All of you leaders in the church and in business too. We need to lead well. The better we lead, the more other people are blessed. So thanks for being a part of this podcast, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
I want to encourage you, as you lead this week, be faithful to God and generous to others. See you next time, and remember, if you're still breathing, you are powered for impact.